You looked right, fire, left, fire. They knew that like their pets weren't making it out, their house wasn't making it out. Firefighters knew we were gonna die if we stay there. All right, so I think this was, yeah, 2018 on November 8th. I woke up to my brother waking me up, and he was just like, hey, bro, look at this funny thing my friend sent me. And it was a picture. And in California, there are forest fires all the time. So when you smell smoke, you just think, oh, it's the town over or the other town or some small mountain town. And so he shows me this picture and he says, look, dude, don't be worried about the thick smoke because the fire is on the other side of the lake. And it's the big lake that divides part of the county I live in. So, I don't pay much attention to it. I go back to sleep, do my morning thing, but the smoke is so thick outside. Not only does it, like, you can't really see very far, but also, as well as not being able to see, I usually, like, walked or biked to school, and that's not good air quality to exercise in. So my parents drop off my siblings, and then I get, first time in, like, a year, I get a car ride to school. And when I arrive at school, basically the air had turned from, like, a foggy gray, like normal, like smoky stuff. It was turning orange. It felt like I was on Mars. It was really strange. You see these things and it's immediately, triggers a uh-oh, because the smoke's never that thick around there. As, the smoke thickens, we pull in and they wave us off. Like, they tell us to go home and we ask what's going on and they're like, there are spot fires all over town. And so, craziest part, I think, when it saw to what others were going through is we pulled into different schools to get my other siblings since I was in middle school, and then another sibling was in middle school, and then my oldest brother was in high school. And so we went to the elementary/middle school that one of my step siblings went to, and lo and behold, I remembered it's part elementary, and there were little kids bawling their eyes out. You could not imagine, because their parents were having to comfort them, but like they knew that like their pets weren't making it out, their house wasn't making it out. You see all these young lives. Like, I'm not talking like I was 11 when it happened. I'm talking these are 7 and 8-year-olds who have to go through this exact same thing. And so we're picking up my siblings and we get back home. And once we're in the driveway, you can't see. It felt like the air was painted or something. It was insane. You couldn't see. We were like maybe a couple feet from my house and we had to pull into the driveway before we could see it. I put on like a jacket. I threw my PS4, a couple like controllers, and just like a bunch of souvenir stuff that I would want to remember. I threw it on a bag, zipped it up, grabbed my special boxes, which I just have boxes of things. They're like little wooden boxes, handmade. I really like them. And so I scooped those up, put them all in our trailer thingy, and we go to pull out of our road that we just pulled into, right? And there is no way out. It's a solid, like, you can tell it's like a mile long strand of cars. We were boxed in on both sides according to reports and stuff. If we wanted to go that way or that way, there was fire. There was not much of a way out, so to speak, except for going through fire. So, after about 30 minutes of just sitting still in this driveway, we get an opening and quickly pull out of our driveway. And this part was kind of where it started to hit different, because me and my siblings turned around and we looked at our house and we realized, holy crap, that is no longer going to be our house. And so basically, as everybody in Paradise had received news at this point, that's in the town, by the way, and everybody in town had received the news that, okay, everything's on fire. And if you stay here, there's not a good chance of your survival. And so everyone knows this. And as we're all, rushing out, crazy things were going on. We saw people hiking with their sweaters over their noses, like trying to get out because the traffic was so jammed that you were a sitting duck. And for most people, it probably seemed like we're going to die here in this town that's on fire. And me being 11 years old, my mother's crying. We have alone me, 4 siblings, and my mom. In a 5-seater, we had 6 people. So we had someone literally sitting on the in-between compartment next to where like the stick is. So we are basically all crammed in like sardines, just hoping we can get out of this. And traffic wasn't moving, so we were mainly cool to get out wherever. It was just the air quality was obviously really dangerous. I think one of the scariest parts were like it set in that I could die at that very moment was when I looked out my window and I put my hand on it and it was warm. I peeked out the window, right? Like, cause I'm trying not to look at the town as it's, burning to ash. And I put my hand on this window and I look out of it and I see the fire Not like I see like sparks or anything. I see the fire engulfing trees, and it's like rapidly coming towards us. And suddenly traffic starts moving again. We tried to make the most of it for whatever you can make of a forest fire. There's this giant pine tree near like where the town center, so to speak, is. And it was on fire, but it had burnt to a point where the tips of the pine tree were on like just the last part that was lit, and it looked like a big Christmas tree. And my brother, in his infinite wisdom, goes, "A Christmas tree in November?" And I start dying of laughter. And then there's just my two sisters sitting next to me, just bawling their eyes out. That was interesting. And so I really remember the day vividly because we hit this road. There are two directions that you go in to leave town to, like, you know, the safe area. You have Skyway, and this is this big main highway. It takes you out of there and to another place. And then there's always a side road that leads to different towns. We needed fire trucks coming through, obviously. So as, you know, everything's burning down and fire trucks need to get in, they close off Skyway. Like, no one can get on Sky. If you're not already on there, there's no going on. We have to hang a left and head down this road. And I remember that road very vividly because that's when the sky turned black. If you looked up, it was about noon at this point. It had been hours since that morning, you know, where everyone thought everything was going to be fine, and it all, you know, crumbled so fast. I looked up and the sky was pitch black with smoke. It looked like it was the middle of the night and it was noon. And so I look up, and where the sun would have been, you know how like sometimes when it's like smoky, the sun will be like a little red or oranger, and the moon will kind of look weird. If you looked up at the sky at this moment, the sun was blood red and like was leaking through the clouds, and there was just this big red spot in the sky. First thing that came to my mind was, wow, this is really hell on earth. I'm not gonna get out of here. It was not fun. There wasn't really any smoke in the car. Luckily, we were able to keep our windows rolled up. We had two cats and a couple dogs that we left with. We made it out with a couple of dogs and one cat, because one of our cats, when we were stuck on this hell road where nobody was moving, we decided we might try to hike out ourselves, and the cat jumped out the window and ran across the street as soon as traffic started moving. And mind you, the reason why we had tried to hike out of this road area, knowing that we're surrounded by fire and that could easily equal our deaths, is because we had been on that road specifically for what I believe to be about 5 hours, sitting still. You looked right, fire, left, fire. My mom went to hike forward, and this guy comes up to her and he says, "It's on fire. There's a tree that's fallen that's on fire, and it's covering the road. There's no way through." My mom has to come back to us and smile and go, "Hey kiddos, we're gonna have to try to walk out of here." And it's heartbreaking when you know things might not be okay, but you have a parent who's just trying to tell you it will be. And as we're sitting here in this car, getting out, trying to find things to cover our face with, as if the perfect timing as we were gonna start walking away from our car, traffic started moving. So we all ran back to the car, got in, and they were basically having people drive over this log that was on fire, because firefighters knew we were gonna die if we stay there. So it was a good couple-hour drive, but once we hit a safe spot and we had a minute to relax. Oh, I almost forgot. There was an old folks home near that road, and there was a van full of old people and this one college girl who lived next door to that said place, and that van broke down on that road we were all on. Roughly 20 people with one way out had no way out. The only option was for them to go to people generous enough and get in the back of their cars, and we fortunately didn't have to deal with an old person, but instead an 18-year-old college student. This college student got in our car, and at this point there were 4 people just in our 3-seated back seats alone. Then there were still 3 people in the front. That was a whole nother thing, being crammed in there just with a stranger, and just like everybody feels like it's the end. And luckily we did get out after a couple hours. There was this park at a nearby town that we turned up at, and this said park, we could see bits and pieces of stuff landing, ash, pages of books. Like there was a whole intact page of a book that was just singed on the outside. All kinds of stuff just falling from the sky, burnt to shreds. So that was surely interesting. And as I said, I was 11 at the time, and you know, I didn't like my hometown at the time. I was sick of it. I wanted to move in with my dad just because of family stuff. But I feel like that was one of the biggest be careful what you wish for moments of my life, because not only did I see my life flash before my eyes multiple times in one car ride, but also I had to deal with seeing my mom completely financially struggling for a long time afterwards. Because when you come out of a fire like that, it's not just, oh, oh, I'm out. It's time to, rebuild. The town, after it's been burnt down, is toxic. Like, you need a hazmat suit to walk around. So we couldn't just, get a new house built. We owned the property, but we did not own the town. They would not let anybody in because of how toxic it was. It was just too dangerous to be there. And so, as this is going on, basically, we lived out of hotels for a good month. And once again, and this is an opinion from my friend that I didn't even take into consideration. He was also in the fire. He said that the scariest part for parents probably wasn't the drive out, but having to tell your kids it's going to be okay when you really don't know if you're going to get a new house, because their jobs, lives, everything, gone. You're not going to turn back and just get it all back because it's been burnt to the ground. It's ash. Sometimes you wonder just where you go after this. As a young kid, I just thought everything's going to be fine. Mom and dad always take care of things. But then I see mom crying and dad starts smoking, and suddenly it's not going to be okay. When you're 11 years old and you realize, oh, it's not okay. It hurts. It hits completely different. There was a time where I got to go out of state for a while. My mom sent me off to live with my uncle for like about a month. And then I moved in with my dad for a little bit. I live with him nowadays, but that was a little test run, I'd suppose. But nobody came out of this the same. Obviously, I had to keep doing school. I was out of school for about a couple months, but the school regathered at a different school, which they let us just kind of use at this secondary location school where we were all going every day. We, same teachers and all that. One of our classes was in a closet. It was all abandoned rooms. We didn't get any nice stuff, but I hated seeing my friends, not because I didn't miss them or because I wasn't worried about them, but because these weren't the same people that I knew before this fire. They were, for lack of better words, they were pretty broken. When I tried to, help any of them with I've always been kind of a jokester. I'm not really one to be great with mental health, but I wanted to try to help my friends because they were my friends. My best friend kind of was unchanging, but that's just him. But everybody else I knew, some of my best friends, I didn't even know them anymore. You never think of what trauma can do to somebody, especially at that young of an age, because you never consider it, Your concerns are get home, do your homework, and then, I don't know, play your, Wii that your uncle got you for Christmas. It's just it was simple. It was the life, You didn't have to consider anything. I think at that point in school, I was breezing through classes. It's like nothing could have gone wrong. And I thought everybody would just be hyped that they got a big break from school like I was, because it didn't hit me for a long time. But I talked to friends, and all they would have to say are negative things. I had friends who were incredibly suicidal, and I didn't know how to talk to them about that. I had friends who had to move away, and people I knew who moved states away, some people who just moved a couple towns, counties, whatever. After all that was said and done, I still had some of those friends, lost a lot of them. And fun little thing about going through something traumatic at a young age, I blocked off all of my emotions until I was about 13 years old, and that was a fun realization because there was a forest fire nearby, and there hadn't been one in a long time because the whole awareness for what happened to that town. I smelled smoke, and I just started shaking, just uncontrollably for a minute. It was just, it takes you back to a moment you never wanted to be in, and it wasn't like shaking a bunch. It was just my hands were quivering really bad, and I was on the verge of tears, and at the moment my mom was in the grocery store, and I was waiting in the car, and I realized if I didn't get myself together, my mom would see me like that, and I didn't want her to, so I was able to pull my stuff together. But whenever I smell smoke nowadays, and it's that familiar smell of just, you can tell it's something that's burning that's not supposed to be burning, it kind of freaks me out still to this day. And other than that, though, I've turned out okay. I came out of all of it intact. None of my family died. There were some funny stories that came out of it. Apparently, my stepbrother used a dirt bike to go save his grandma, and he said, take only what you need, and she put a box of cookies in her bag and said, I have low blood sugar. And then as he's taking this this freaking dirt bike, and he's zooming up, a cop stops him, and he's just the cop's just all right, you know what, just don't crash, because the cop knew desperate times, desperate measures. There were some stories of heroism, and a documentary was made out of it. I mean, there are interesting things. It brought the whole community together so much when it came to rebuilding. It was never really part of the community of that town. I was just kind of a mountain town, lame. you know? And then it burnt down, and I can't say I'd want it back for my sake, but for the sake of others, because, you know, for me, I got to move in with my dad. I had been dreaming of doing that since like 8, 9 years old, because my relationship with my mom's always been rocky. So I got this opportunity. It's like there's always some kind of light in the dark, you know, just like this big quote. I think it was literally the new sign for the town. I think it was like, love is thicker than smoke. And I think that genuinely applied to the way I experienced so much support. Some guy, when we were at a restaurant, gave my mom $500 just because we were fire victims. And he knew that we were basically just every penny that we were spending could lead to bankruptcy. We could run out of money. We could starve. He gave my mom a lot of money, and he just said, like, God bless. And then that was it. You meet wonderful people in times like this. Tragedy, I feel like, always comes with something that you can, like, get more out of it. So whether it's a fire or, you know, anything like that, pandemics, whatever, you know, that's a more current one. It's just like, you're always going to find people who are just going to be down about it. But I feel like all of this crazy stuff will always build a sense of community. My mom at this point has rebuilt a house and is happily living in that town again. I personally am still living with my dad, but I still visit my mother time to time. Well, yeah, honestly, I think it turned out for the better in the end, because a lot of people met a lot more people and learned a lot about people. Like, there were mean people in the town I live in about it, because this is the city, and a bunch of mountain people who don't know how to drive had to drive on like highways, freeways, stuffed with cars. There was a car wreck. There were like 5 car wrecks every day for like a couple months, because all of the mountain town people were like not used to such stimulating amount of traffic. There was all kinds of, it was a shock wave. It affected a lot of people. There were big celebrities that donated, like some millionaire guy and a bunch of celebrities did something for the local high school. Every single student got $1,000 at that high school, and like Michael Scott and Dwight from The Office, their actors, a bunch of actors just from all kinds of different pieces of media sent out like this like stay strong letter to the entire town. There was music made of it. Everybody felt a lot closer after it happened. The last yearbook I ever got was of that year, and I think as horrific as that year ended, I think what was that, 2019, I would say went pretty dang good, just because everything kind of went, when you hit rock bottom, there's nowhere to go than up. And that's basically my whole thing. I don't know if that's shorter than I thought it would be, but yeah.
Tell me a story, I wanna hear it. You might think it's boring, but I'm interested. Tell me a story, I wanna hear it. You might think it's boring, but I'm interested.